Hey, everybody, we are live. Thank you so much for joining us. I am joined once again, as I was a couple months ago, by my good buddy Lee Moore. Lee is one of the geniuses behind the upcoming Atheist Conference in New York City that is coming up in 2018, July 2018. I'm going to be a part of it. A lot of other awesome figures, personalities in the atheist community are going to be a part of it. So before we get started and get into our sort of topic of the hour here, Lee, why don't you tell people really quick, what is TAC, the Atheist Conference? Why should they be so excited about it? And where can they go if they want to buy tickets and make their reservations to be a part of it?
Well, first off, Steve, thank you very much, but I am not a genius by any stretch.
I'm building you up, man. I'm building you up.
I appreciate it, but you shouldn't lie to your audience like that.
No, I've broken trust.
I know, it's terrible. No, thank you so much for having me on. Thanks for being a part of what we're doing. TAC is the Atheist Conference. We are doing New York City's first ever fully fledged 3-day long Atheist Con. And it's all about a central theme, and that central theme is bringing compassion into the atheist community. Because it is something that I'm really sorry to say we are sorely lacking.
Yeah.
And Steve, I'm sure you know this. For all you folks listening, I'm sure you're quite well aware of this. Atheism answers a single question, but where do we go from there? Yes, we still want to promote atheism. Yes, we want to talk about why there is no God, and of course, we want to be a safeguard against intrusions in our law books from the religious communities. We have to do all these things, but at the same time, who are we doing this? For years now, I've heard the phrase, good without God, and I'm sorry to say it's just a motto. I want that phrase to have meaning. And I want to talk about what it is to have meaning in good without God. I'm going to take God out of the, we already know you don't need God to be good. What is it to be good in the 21st century? That's a big part of what we want to talk about with the Atheist Conference. But for the most part, we're doing a lot of new things that no one's ever done with an Atheist Con or any other kind of con, from my knowledge. We're doing some stuff that some folks may find a bit questionable, may find a bit weird. But I guarantee none of it's going to be offensive, none of it's going to be horrible, and everyone's going to have a really good time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to it. And if people want to learn a little bit more about it and want to, and if you're even ready to buy tickets or make your reservations, the link is in the description of this video. It's theatheistconference.com. You can go and check out the website and make your reservations. It's going to be held, it's July 6th through the 8th next year in New York City in the beautiful Roosevelt Hotel.
Just 2 blocks from Grand Central Station, so really easy to get to.
Yeah, it's really going to be something spectacular. So hopefully you folks watching will be, if you're not interested now, hopefully by the end of this talk, you'll be interested, because we're going to talk about TAC a little bit and where hopefully it fits in the broader atheist movement. And hopefully a lot of you will be up for joining us next year for TAC. So before we get to that, though, obviously, Lee, we have to talk, as a lot of us have been talking for the last month or so, about where the atheist movement has kind of run off track in a lot of ways. And we had a really vivid example of that in the MythCon event, the Mythicist Milwaukee Mythinformation Conference that was held last month in Milwaukee, where, as everybody I'm sure who is watching this knows by now, there was a collection of people who were invited to be speakers who were not the most respectable people, who have, histories of espousing very sexist, misogynist, often racist or borderline racist opinions. One of these people was Carl Benjamin, who was on YouTube as Sargon of Akkad, who tweeted, among his many, many other offenses, he once tweeted at a member of British Parliament who also happened to be a sexual assault survivor herself, that he wouldn't even rape her. And when this was mentioned on stage, when Carl Benjamin was there, this was applauded by the people in the audience. This was like an applause line for the people who had come to this conference. So I think that's safe to say that's a low point for the atheist movement, to have someone like that invited on stage, and B, to have his awfulness be applauded by the assembled people in the audience. So I know you have some personal opinions about this. You have your own perspective on the lead up to MythCon and the people involved in it, and what has sort of transpired since then. So Lee, why don't you just tell me a little bit, whatever you feel like telling us about your experience relative to Mythicist Milwaukee and MythCon?
Well, I got to jump in and say that MythCon was a symptom of a larger problem.
Yes.
And the organizers at MythCon, who I'm going to preface this by saying I do not like, I do not approve of, I do not get along with. We had a scuffle, like, in person. We are not working with them. They are not working with us. The feeling of dislike is very mutual. But they saw a problem that we saw here in New York. The atheist community is dying. Atheist conferences, atheist meetings are having fewer and fewer attendees. We had the idea, let's do something different. Let's bring in a new breed of people. They had the same idea. Where we differ, though, is they thought bringing in a new breed of people meant bringing in people that think rape is funny. We don't really see eye to eye in that, and that's kind of a big point of contention for us. We met the guys in South Carolina at the American Atheist Conference, their annual one, and it was a very small con. It was the smallest one I've ever seen AA put on. There were probably less than 500 people there. They usually do close to 1,000, so it was kind of depressing, and it's not their fault. They put on a good show. It was this big solar eclipse party because we're in the path of the solar eclipse, which is why we're in Charleston, South Carolina. But it was a good show. It was a good con, but it wasn't well attended for a lot of reasons that we won't even get into. But anyways, so we meet the MythCon guys there, and they're telling us about their conference. I'm like, a conference on mythicism. And I'm like, what is mythicism? And they're like, well, it's the idea that Jesus Christ wasn't real. Like, that whole thing was a myth. I was like, well, we already kind of know that he wasn't divine. Why do you have a conference arguing what? Like, I didn't understand the premise of this, but I was like, I wasn't going to argue against it or like fight. I was curious, but I was like, well, who do you have speaking? And they said someone named Shoehead and an armored guy.
Right.
Or a guy wears a suit of armor, and Sargon of Akkad. I was like, well, what's their stance on mythicism? And crickets. Nothing. No answer. So let me get this straight. You have a conference that it's not an atheist conference. It's not a skeptic conference. It's not a humanist conference. You have a conference based on the idea that Jesus Christ was a completely fictional character. And to talk about this, you invite the rape brigade.
Exactly.
So of course I had a few drinks. I lost my composure a little bit and told them, dude, if you guys do this, we're going to utterly destroy you. You're going to destroy yourselves, and we're going to make fun of you as you burn down. And they're burning. Yeah. The sad part is they sold a lot of tickets, and that's because of Sargon's crowd. They set an example that says, hey, you can do these horrible things and sell tickets. So now TAC has been around. The idea of TAC has been around for a long time. And our idea has always been compassion, humanism, the idea of being a better person. We're not changing anything because of MythCon, but we're changing everything because of what came before us. MythCon is like us. We're both symptoms of a dying movement. We're trying to do something new to bring the movement back. MythCon, as far as I could figure, was trying to do something to make themselves money. Because I can't for the life of me figure out how in the fuck you could have that lineup and still think you're about any kind of compassion, any kind of humanism, any kind of decent behavior.
No, I mean, and that the point that you touched on really quickly there, I think, is an important one in terms of TAC's relationship or TAC's place in all of this. Is that I know personally you contacted me about this back in April or May. I mean, it's been prior to this summer when
we've literally been working on TAC for over 2 years now.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. I'm sure you and your team has been working on it much longer than that, but I got involved, months and months and months ago before I even, was remotely interested in what Mythicist Milwaukee was doing, let alone, long before the event actually took place. So just for anybody who views this and they say, oh, okay, now they're doing their own thing to respond to MythCon. I mean, obviously it's impossible not to want to respond to it because it was such a shit show, but the event itself, TAC, is much older than that and has much deeper roots than that. It just so happens that we're going to be able to
have deeper roots because MythCon technically has been around for a while. I think
yeah,
fourth one. This will be our first one.
Right.
But yeah, so Just to clarify that, I don't want anyone to get the wrong
Yeah,
impression.
this event was not designed as a response to MythCon.
It was not. With this event, we had no idea what MythCon was until we were in South Carolina earlier this year.
Yeah, and hopefully, I mean, because they did sell a lot of tickets, and then they had a GoFundMe afterwards to make up for their losses that they incurred. That was successful. So in that respect, you can look at it and say, oh, well, maybe they were right. They did make money doing it, but they have also completely murdered their reputation in the community. Most other people in the community who are legitimate themselves or wish to be viewed as legitimate, and want to keep being invited to conferences and, get people to pledge to them on Patreon and listen to their podcasts or whatever, have completely disowned them. Most other major conferences have said, we're not going to work with you guys. We don't want anything to do with you. Major atheist secular personalities, even people that I'm kind of pissed at for how they've behaved as a result of this, have still said, I don't want anything to do with you guys. I'm washing my hands of it. This isn't what I am interested in. I'm embarrassed. I think you're a disgrace. Leave me alone, So when you say they're burning, I mean, they really have completely isolated themselves and established themselves as, the shitlord conference. And anyone who has any pretensions for anything other than that is leaving them alone, is saying, okay, not my thing.
Well, I know some folks have said if they have a change in leadership or go back to what they were or
right.
different, but get rid of the people that made those calls, like they give them another chance. And that's incredibly reasonable, and I completely support that because,
sure.
Well, I don't care about whether or not Jesus Christ was a fictional character or not. If that's something that a lot of folks do care about, they are passionate about, they want to hear the latest research or the talks about it, and there should be a venue for it. I don't think there should be a venue for the rape thing. That's just
no.
I also have to say I've known Sargon a little bit in recent days, mostly looking into you, Steve.
Yeah.
Number of videos, but I didn't really know the guy. I didn't really know the full extent. I didn't know about that tweet until I saw that interview on stage with him and Thomas Smith. And I just, between the fact that he actually said that and was okay with that, between his reasons for doing it, this bullshit reasoning about tactics, and the way the crowd reacted, I was at a loss for words. This was just so disgusting. Tactic-wise, you couldn't shoot yourself in the foot more if you actually cared about bringing an interest to male suicide rates, which I believe was his excuse.
Yeah.
If you really want to do that, you would want to reach out in a positive way, or get people to talk about this thing in such a way that doesn't make you look like you wear fucking clown shoes. I just don't see how anybody has any respect for this guy.
Well, and it's the organizers who have been speaking out about it since then. Like Thomas Smith had two of them on his podcast recently, along with Eli Bosnick and
Callie Wright.
Callie Wright interviewed him, and whether they truly believe it or not, or they're just covering their asses, and they're just refusing to admit that they fucked up and they should, alter course. I don't really care which one it is, because the effect is the same. And they're getting, I think at one point during their appearance on Thomas Smith's podcast last week, one of them described Sargon as an intellectual, which is just okay. If your bar for intellectual is the guy who harasses feminists for a living on YouTube, if that's an intellectual to you, or the guy who was so offended by, there's another one where he made a video response to a PSA that Jane Lynch and a girl with Down syndrome made, asking people not to say the R word, and basically saying, look, that's a really mean word. It hurts people's feelings. Just don't say the R word, and Sargon was so offended by this that he not only made a video response to it where he angrily rebuked the idea that anyone would ask people to not use ableist language when referring to people who are, mentally disabled or what have you. But
hold on a second, Steve. Let me stop you right there. I have a question.
Please.
I've seen a lot of this whole, we stand for free speech, and I stand for free speech. Free speech is amazing.
Sure.
I love the First Amendment. I love having the right to speak my mind, to talk about the things that mean the most to me. And I hear from my friends, or at least or the people on the free speech side, who I think I'm aligned with in that, they have this mentality that their rights are physically under attack. And that makes absolutely no sense to me, because I don't see anyone attacking the First Amendment. If someone asks me not to say a word because it really eats at them, I'm not a bastard. I'm going to listen to that request and say,
right,
no problem. You know, I don't want to be horrible to you. That's not censoring. They're not censoring me. I'm being a compassionate human being by listening to someone else's pain. I don't see how you can argue it otherwise. So, Steve, how do they argue it otherwise? That's my question.
The argument seems to be that it's unfair to even ask that of someone. That's what I can come up with, is that they think that it's like if you were using a word that I personally found deeply offensive, or if I was a member of a group that, you know, had been referred to using this particular word a long time, and it just really, you know, it hurt us and it dehumanized us, and we were really just, you know, hurt and offended and degraded by this word. And I said, look, you know, when you talk about people like me, could you please just not use that word? And all I'm doing is just asking you. I'm just making you aware, right, that it's a problem for me, and just saying, look, if you want to talk about us, just please don't use that word.
Yeah, what's the problem?
In their minds,
so reasonable.
Yeah, there is no problem. In their minds, someone asking you that is unreasonable. That's the only thing I can think.
They're asking you for a favor, as a fellow human being.
Yeah, exactly. Just do me a solid. Don't use words that degrade and dehumanize me, please.
I'm sorry, but that's not censorship. That is not censorship at all.
No, because as they have proven, you can still say the words. The only thing is, people might think you're a jerk, right? I mean, that's really what it boils down to. Their version of free speech, it seems to me, just going by how they behave and the arguments they make, their version of free speech is not only do I get to say anything I want, but I get to say it any time I want, at any venue that I want, and you don't get to judge me for it. So
yeah, that's insane.
That's just not the way it works. That's one way free speech. That means that my speech is more important than yours, because I'm saying I can say whatever I want, but if you say that I'm an asshole for saying that, then that's on you. You're the bad person, not me.
Yeah, it's completely insane.
It's ridiculous.
I don't get that at all. It's very, I don't even know the words to describe it. I've been looking into this whole like social justice warrior versus free speecher. I don't even know if those are the right terms movement. Yeah. And I used to think that, you know, free speech, awesome, but there's no, like I said, there's no fight about it. There's no war on the First Amendment. Why are we even having this conversation? If someone asks you not to be an asshole, is it really so hard to not be an asshole? Is it so important to you to hold on to your asshole credentials that you just, what's the point? We have better shit to do.
Yeah, I mean, especially if the person has helpfully told you specifically what, you know, they would prefer that you not do. You know what I mean? I don't get it either. I think it's
there are cases where people have asked me not to curse or not to be profane, not to say fuck. Yeah. I say fuck every other word. I mean, it's just it's the way I talk, and they're like, that's really offensive. I was like, why is it offensive? And I'll get into that, and I will have those conversations. But the word fuck doesn't disparage anyone. I get it when a word actually has a disparaging meaning to it, an insulting meaning. There is a difference here.
And I feel the same way. And I mean, but, you know, even with, you know, saying something like fuck or just, you know, sort of garden variety cursing, if I'm in someone's house and I know they don't like swearing, then I don't swear. You know, if I'm on like a radio show or something and I know that there's FCC guidelines that you're not allowed to swear, then I don't swear. There are certain, and neither would anybody else. Like most people, if you're you know, over at your parents' house or your in-laws' house or your significant other's parents' house, and you know that they have certain attitudes and they frown on hearing words like fuck and shit and whatever, you know, most people are going to just cool it or just not going to say it, just for the sake of respect and for the sake of not starting anything, you know, over
Yes,
nothing.
not everything has to be a fight 24/7.
Yeah.
But we have bigger fights, bigger concerns, more important things to focus our energy on.
Yeah. So yeah, but that seems to be the attitude of, well, not, we get to say whatever we want and you don't get to think, and it's unfair of you to think less of us for it. I saw just the other day, actually, I read about it today. There were people who were taking the side of the people in the audience who cheered for the sexual assault tweet. David Smalley and a few other people were saying, well, it's unfair to say that they were cheering for sexual harassment by cheering for that tweet. Maybe they were just cheering to be edgy, and again, the tweet they were cheering was a man saying to a woman who was a sexual assault survivor, I wouldn't even rape you. And people cheered for that. And we're expected to believe that it's unfair to think poorly of people who cheered for that. Like, that's being unreasonable. If someone cheers for a woman being taunted,
David Smalley.
Yeah. I don't know. It's
that. Why even stick up for that? What's the
point? Why is this your hill to die on? Why are you wasting so much intellectual energy and so much time coming up with excuses for people who cheered for that? Like, why is it? Yeah, it makes no sense to me.
And I'm sorry, that behavior is unacceptable. As someone who considers themselves a humanist, how?
Oh, yeah.
And I have read once Sargon calls himself a humanist. Like, that just blows my mind.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't understand how anyone with any semblance of concern or consideration for other people, and any sense of responsibility in terms of the atheist community and the movement could react to it any differently than David Silverman did, where he basically said, that's fucking awful. That doesn't happen at our conferences and it never will. I mean, what is another appropriate response? I don't see how it's appropriate to see that and go, well, let's not jump to conclusions. Maybe they weren't necessarily cheering for sexual harassment. Like, come on. What battles are we fighting here? What is wrong with you that you're incapable of saying the people who cheered for that are in the wrong?
Oh, of course they're in the wrong, but I will play a little bit of just a hair of devil's advocate.
Okay.
A lot of those people didn't fully understand what they were cheering for. Maybe.
No, I'll go along with that. But as I said a minute ago about, why I don't care whether or not, the MythCon organizers are truly 100% on board with this, or if they're just covering their asses. I mean, whether people knew what they were cheering for or not, the effect is the same. I mean, you still have an atheist conference that attracted an audience full of people who felt that was an okay thing to do.
Well, let me fix you. Let me correct you on one thing.
Go for it.
That was not an atheist conference.
Oh, yes. A mythicist conference.
It's important, apparently, that distinction.
Yes.
They made it very clear that distinction is important, so I'm going to run with them on that.
It's a mythicist conference.
That was not an atheist conference, and there are atheist conferences. There are good atheist conferences. There are bad atheist conferences.
Certainly.
That was not one of them, of either category.
That's a good point. Hey, they weren't an atheist conference. They were a mythicist conference.
Which, hell, if that's your thing, like I said, go for it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, there must be people, though, who are mythicists and who do take that really seriously. Because it is, I mean...
Well, David Smalley, I think, is one of them. I know David Fitzgerald is really big on that. Richard Carrier does a lot of stuff on that.
There must be
guys that well. Well, Smalley, I've had recent encounters with that kind of made me worry about him a little. But David Fitzgerald, every encounter I've ever had with that guy was great. He was a super nice guy. I don't know if he's a terrible person because I don't read everyone's tweets and whatnot, but it's very important to him. He does a lot of good work with it, and if that's his thing, and he can find a niche in this world to do it, more power to him.
Yeah, there's
a demand for it. There is an interest in it, so go for it.
And there must be people who take it seriously, who wish that there could be a legitimate event built around it, and which I don't know. Apparently the previous versions of it in past years, the Mythinformation Conference was an okay event.
Yeah. Your friend thanks to you, I got to meet Thomas Smith, and he and I talked at length what it used to be like. I was like, this sounds like a great event. What happens? Oh wait, I know what happens. And no, it wasn't Sargon, it wasn't Shoehead, it wasn't the pseudo armor dude.
Yeah.
It was the decline of the atheist movement. The atheist community as a whole is dying, and it's about dead. We need to face that fact. A lot of people contributed to its death. Mostly, though, everyone in charge. We all kept patting ourselves on the back, kept congratulating ourselves for getting one single question right. That's it. And we kept going on that premise. We didn't dare to stop to ask, what next? How do we keep this going? How do we build on this? We just said, well, okay, we won. We're done. Let's just keep doing what we've been doing.
Yeah, I know that I've said before, and I think I mentioned it when we talked on camera last time. I mentioned how, you know, my personal focus has drifted very much toward, you know, looking inward at the atheist community and thinking, you know, what can we do to make this community better, as opposed to focusing outside and, you know, wanting to you know, fight the battles against encroaching religion and separation of church and state, which, as you said at the beginning, are all very, very important fights that we still need to fight. But yeah, I mean, while we've all been fighting those battles and, you know, and celebrating basically the same people, you know, the same major headliners get invited to conferences year after year. And we've been listening to many of the same people saying the same things over and over again. And meanwhile, a lot of people who were in the community and many of whom were even very active and engaged in the community have left, have stopped paying attention, have stopped going to conferences, have stopped volunteering their time and spending their money. And they've just said, this doesn't feel like this is for me anymore. You know, when you have, you know, there are so many good people in the community, but there are also a lot of people, there are, I think, probably a relatively small number of people that are just absolutely awful. And then there's a group of people around them who are sort of tolerating them and making excuses for them. And other folks see that and they go, well, if there's going to be this kind of, you know, if you're going to be so blasé about, as you called them, Lee, the rape brigade, if that's just kind of okay with you, if that you're okay having those people around, then I'm out of here.
Well, I will say that all of the major orgs, every other atheist conference I've ever heard of, ever seen, wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Absolutely.
That doesn't mean they're off the book, though. And they're actually the reason that we're in this situation right now. So we've worked with a lot of major orgs throughout our years, all the work we do up here in New York, all the work we're doing here on TAC, and we have not gotten a great deal of support. And the things we've discovered from the people that have been running the show have really left us, let's just say, wondering what the future will be, or, oh yeah, we can see why everything's kind of dying. A lot of the major old school groups, even a lot of the major old school speakers, they don't care about the movement anymore. They care about their paychecks. They care about making money out of the movements. And that's where the focus is for a lot of them. For some of them, they're pulling back all, and I'm not going to name names. Right. I'm not. Because if anything, I would like to inspire better behavior or a call back to what brought us all together to begin with. That immense feeling that we can actually work together to achieve something better. But I don't see it anymore. I don't see it from the folks that were supposed to be pushing that. And it's bothering the hell out of me. And that's something else we hope to change with TAC, to set the standard, to saying, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we're about. We don't care about the money. And the money is an important thing right now for everybody right now. We're outspent over, actually, we don't even know the exact figure because we can't, thanks to the IRS codes, but estimated 20 to 30,000 times what religion spends on lobbying, what they spend on influencing folks. And yeah, I pulled that number out of my ass. I'm sorry.
But it's a big disparity, whatever it is.
Yes, because we are outnumbered heavily. We don't have people like Billy and Franklin Graham telling you to put your hands on the TV screen and feel the healing power of God and give us all your money. And people do it. Yeah. We don't do that shit, so we don't make a lot of money. So yeah, most of the big groups, they're focused on making money. TAC has a different philosophy on money. Yes, we have to charge admission. And yes, because it's in New York City, that admission is kind of high. I'm sorry about that. We've done everything in our power to keep our prices as low as possible, but we're in New York City. But I can tell you this. One, no one's getting rich off this. Nobody. No one's making money off this in our entire organization. We are all volunteers. We're all going to stay volunteers. That's how we do things. That's how it should be. Two, and this is the most important thing, any profits we have minus what we need for 2019 are going to go into a program, a grant program, where we're going to start funding small scale local groups on the projects they want to do to promote themselves and secularism in this country. And we want to focus on the red states. We want to focus on Trump territory. Yes, we can make some money doing this. And yes, we should put that money where it can do the most good. And up here in New York, we're fine. Nobody votes for Trump. We're good. We are not the problem. We have to use the resources we can gather up here to put it to send it where they need to go, where it's needed most, where it can do the most good. So that's something we want to do. And that's something I don't see a lot of the major groups doing. Like I said, they just care about paying their salaries and whatnot. And it's fine, I guess, if that's what you want to do, but we have to do better.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, and for anyone who does wonder about the ticket price, that's a really good point to make too, is that the money that is generated by this conference doesn't just go to putting on another conference the next year. Hopefully it also goes to hopefully having some money to infuse, a fresh breath of life into some grassroots organizations that can build up and become the next generation of this movement, because that's
the thing. Nobody's funding these groups. Nobody's funding the people that have their boots on the ground, that are fighting in the front lines, that can do the most good. Nobody's funding them. Nobody's watching them. Nobody cares. So we're going to. And we're also doing something else that has gotten us a lot of hell from a lot of the big names in the old guard. We're not paying speaker fees.
Ooh.
All of our speakers. Yes, we will fly you out here. Yes, we will put you up in a hotel room, because that's fair. You're working with us. You're putting on an event. We're not going to give you a lot of money. We're not going to give you any money. Yeah, I might take you out for a drink out of my own paycheck, which I don't get from this.
Right.
That's pretty much it. That's all we can do, because we want every single cent we have to go to this grassroots program. And yeah, like I said, we've had a lot of blowback from a lot of big names. I'm not going to name names, because that just seems kind of spiteful and petty. And even though I kind of want to be a little spiteful and petty, you guys know who I'm talking about if you're listening, bastards. We just can't, because I'm not interested in supporting someone's paycheck. I'm interested in doing the right thing and getting the money to go where it's best used. And that is not paying your rent. I'm sorry, but it's not.
There's a couple of points there that you bring up that I think are really important, as far as what I understand that is we're hoping to accomplish with TAC. And that is, one, to inspire a new generation of atheist activists, and also to attract people who are interested in really taking part, really getting their hands dirty and doing something in the community, whether it's inside to make the atheist community a better, more inclusive place for all kinds of people, especially people who maybe have stopped paying attention because they feel like there's nothing for them here, or they aren't welcome here. And also just people who want to go out into the world, and want to fight those battles we were talking about earlier, the church and state separation, go into the courts, and when a local board of education wants to force people to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance or whatever, like, they can go in and fight those battles from a secular point of view and say, hey, wait a minute, that's not constitutional. You can't force people to do that. That's something that has been needed in the movement for a really, really long time, I think. An infusion of fresh blood, fresh people, and people who are here, not just to be an audience member. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you just want to, sit in an audience and watch people talk and entertain you, that's perfectly fine. But people who are willing to go above and beyond and not just be an audience member, but be a participant, be an activist, you know, put their feet on the ground and say, I'm here to help. I'm here to do something. You know, I want to help carry this forward. Hopefully those are the people like that, and people like that who are watching, who have been doing that all along, and maybe have felt their motivation lagging a little bit, wondering, what am I doing this for? Or people who want to do that and want to know that if I do put my heart and soul into this movement, that it'll be worth it. You know, that there's a place for you, that there's some place you can come, you can meet other people. There's somewhere we can go with this, you know, from this point forward. I really hope that not only is this a successful conference just for its own sake, so we can do another one, but so we can inspire the people who come to be with us to say, you know what, we can change this thing. We can make this into something that is really going to be useful and really going to be valuable to people.
Of course. And that philosophy that you just very eloquently laid out is kind of directed how we chose our speakers for this. Like, Natasha Stoyanov is one of our big speakers. For those of you who don't know that name, she was someone who was sexually assaulted by President Donald Trump. Her story came out November during the election, or it was October actually it came out. And everyone was like, well, Trump is done. And of course he wasn't, but her story is real. It's true. She's an amazing speaker. She's been a journalist for more years than I can count. She's so witty, just such a good person. I want you to hear her story. I want you to be inspired by her. And we've even picked a lot of speakers from the atheist community that we thought still have something to bring. Some of them are the old school folks. Some of them, very few. Like Aaron Ra, who says we should actually be running for office, who actually said, not only should we be doing, I'm going to do it right now.
He's doing it right now, absolutely.
Aaron Ra is a great guy. He's always fought for what's right. I've always respected him. We've gotten along just so well. He's such a good person. So I wanted to have him. But I'm also mostly focusing on voices that people have not heard. Like you, Steve. You should have a way bigger audience than you do.
Oh, you're very kind.
We want to fix that. We want to help that because you've got a good message, and I want that message heard. We want younger voices. We want people that haven't been tainted by the money, by the corruption, by the assaults that are so rampant and ongoing. We want a new community, and that's something we want to build with TAC.
Yeah, it's the idea of attracting people who care. You know, you mentioned that people learned about Trump's sexual assault and we thought, okay, that's it. And then that wasn't it. And the reason that wasn't it was because not enough people cared. A lot of people heard about what Trump did and they just didn't care.
Or they didn't believe it.
Or they didn't believe it. Yeah, they thought, well, they're making it up, or they just, for whatever reason, it just didn't register with them as something that was that important. And I think TAC is in part for people in our community who care, you know, who see things like that and go, that's unacceptable. We should do something about that. Not just in the particular case of Donald Trump, but in general. When people are walked on or abused or harassed or ignored or silenced, you know, that's not okay. That if we want to have an atheist community, it should be an atheist community that is available and accepting of and hospitable to everyone.
Steve, you're so right on. I grew up in the Deep South, and I've been walked on, I've been stepped on, I've been ignored, silenced, attacked all my life growing up.
Yeah.
I got into the atheist community because I wanted to work with people who understood that and said, we can move beyond that. We can build something better, and we can fight back against those who would perpetuate that kind of lifestyle. I haven't always seen that in the atheist community, but we're going to do it on our own now if we have to.
Yeah, and hopefully we can, you know, we can take what has worked up to this point and adapt it for the future, and we can finally start to drop some of the things that, you know, that haven't worked, and move beyond some of the people who haven't worked.
Well, I mean, also I've gone to atheist conferences pretty much since they started up during the birth of the new atheist movements, and I've seen what works and I've seen a lot of what doesn't. So we're trying new stuff. We're going to have workshops the entire time coinciding with the main stage. we're going to have speakers from outside of the atheist movement. We're actually currently working with some A-list Hollywood celebrities to come out and talk, to bring this message to a wider audience, which is something you don't usually see. Actually, you never see it in Atheist Con. We're doing things differently. We're having a science and art expo. We're going to showcase recent scientific developments, advances in technology, and local artists who have something amazing to contribute to the culture, to the community. We want to showcase the best of us, the best ideas of us, and go forward with them. That's what TAC's about.
That is a really, I love that last bit, especially that there's going to be a science and art expo, because that's one of the parts, like a lot of people don't like the idea of there being an atheist community, or they don't think there is one. And to a certain extent, I can agree with that, because they say that, because it's like, well, yeah, the only thing we all definitely have in common is that we don't believe in God. Well, but you can say that about a lot of communities. There are a lot of, the communities that rally around a baseball team, the only thing they have in common is they like the team. They could be completely different in every other way, but that brings them together, and they spend time together, and they get to know each other, and they start to care about each other, and they start talking about stuff other than baseball. And before you know it, you have an actual community. That's what the atheist community is. We came together on the basis of that one question we got right. And that was all we talked about at first. And then we got to know each other, and we started to talk about other things. We started to see problems both in our own community and outside the community that we thought were important. And we said, hey, let's talk about these too. And it grows into something more than what it was founded as. And there are so many people who are atheists, who are part of this community, who are just brilliant people, who are wonderful artists and writers and brilliant scientists and engineers and researchers, and have so much to contribute and so much to share and so much that we can and should be recognizing and celebrating. And I think that's just a fantastic idea, to have that as a part of the conference, to invite people and showcase people who are from our ranks, who have these talents and skills and these things to say and things to teach. I think that's fantastic.
Years ago, I used to do this monthly event called the Godless Revival. We called it an atheist variety show. And it was a lot of fun, but the idea was we as atheists keep saying that we're the smartest, we're the best, we're the most talented. Let's put our money where our mouth is. Let's actually have people on stage proving that. And we did a lot of that. We had really great comedians, we had scientists, we had artists, we had people with something to promote, something to show that being an atheist actually is kind of beneficial to your mind. And that kind of spirit we captured with that is something I want to recreate with TAC.
And as you know, and as a lot of people watching this know, there are so many wonderful, talented people who we can count as members of the atheist community that are like an untapped resource, that don't get invited to conferences very much, that don't get the spotlight put on them very much, that don't have their work recognized and celebrated, that it's such an untapped resource that it really is ridiculous to think that, we have to resort to inviting online bullies and trolls and, rape apologists to conferences in order to have people on the stage. There are so many people in this community who are fantastic people, who are decent, compassionate, empathetic, upstanding human beings, and also have wonderful talents or wonderful, insights or things to share and things to say. It's about time we start, turning to them to create a new face for the movement, instead of, saying, oh, hey, here's someone who's absolutely awful, but he has a big audience, so let's bring him up, Oh,
absolutely. Absolutely, Steve. And I've got to say, in the interest of full disclosure, when we started this whole thing out, we reached out to literally everybody, not knowing who everybody was. We didn't know. So I'm going to apologize for that right here and then. We reached out to everybody in the movements, everybody from the highest level to the lowest YouTubers to the blog community. Reached out to everybody. And Sargon was actually someone we reached out to. We reached out to TJ. We reached out to everyone, trying to find people who wanted to promote the ideal that we have. And we heard back from some, and then we discovered who they were and said, no, you actually don't share our ideal. You're not down with this. So I kind of figured this video will be dissected, so I want to put that out there.
Yeah. Do you mean that you actually exercised some measure of judgment and you realize that certain people aren't the kind of people you want to do business with? I've never heard of that before.
I mean, I looked at people who had a following and I was like, maybe they could use their following to benefit this wonderful cause that we're trying to promote. And then I saw what they were about and I was like, okay, we're not doing that. Because why the hell would you?
Yeah. Like, why? There are certain, I mean, to a certain extent, if you just divorce yourself from the morality of it and you focus solely on the numbers, you know, I guess I get why people like that are appealing. But yeah, when you look at the kind of content that they create and the kind of audience that their content attracts, I mean, you have to think, is it really worth it? Is this really the audience that I want coming to my thing? You know, and I mean, to me, the answer has always been easy. The answer has always been no, absolutely not. And I've done everything I possibly can to make it clear to people who like those sorts of things, or, you know, who are of that mindset, that I have nothing for them. You know, like, I don't want you. I'm not interested in you. Go away. Leave me alone. I'm not doing this for you.
I do want them in a sense. I want
them
to
stop
doing what they're doing and come back and join us in being decent human beings. That's what I want. That's the message I've got. Why be an asshole if you don't have to be an asshole? I get it. There are times where you actually have to be a bit of a shithead in life. You don't have to do it all the time. You can turn it off.
Absolutely. I mean, if you find yourself being such an asshole for such a long portion of your life that, you know, you're actually entertaining intellectual arguments over why the Kekistan flag isn't offensive, or why maybe it's okay to applaud for sexual harassment sometimes, like, you really need to just take a break. You need to stand up and take a step back and go, what the hell am I doing? What am I actually trying to justify here? You know? And yeah,
I'm gonna jump in though and say the worst thing about MythCon was all the people that did go to MythCon and had no idea what they were getting into.
Yeah.
For tickets and have been, in a sense, ostracized by members of our community for going to something they thought was going to be a conference on mythicism. And a lot of those folks have contacted me and we've talked, and if you're watching this right now, I got your back. You were the ones who cheered for Thomas Smith. You were the good ones. You were the ones we love. More power to you. Keep rocking on. And if anybody from our community gives you hell, say the word. We got your back. Absolutely.
That's an important message too. Like, the people who were cheering for Sargon, they should not be allowed to speak for the entire community. And there are plenty of us who were absolutely sickened by that and disgusted by that, and are determined now more than ever to keep moving the atheist community as a whole as far away from that as possible. Not just that in particular, but also fixing all of those underlying issues that were able, you know, that allowed that kind of thing to happen in the first place. So yeah, absolutely. There's a place for you. You know, you need a lot of the secret to being happy in life is finding your people. And believe me, if you're an atheist or a secular person in general, and you're upset and angered and hurt and threatened and appalled by all of those awful things that happened at MythCon, believe me, there's a place for you. Your people are here. We're as grossed out and disgusted and angry about it as you are. You know?
Exactly. We're with you, and we're trying to do better.
Absolutely.
We were trying to do better before MythCon did what they did.
Yeah, because the problems that resulted in MythCon have been around forever.
Yes, and the atheist community has been failing for, like I said, quite a while now. We had an idea to fix the community. MythCon had an idea to make money.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah. The short dollar, as Eli likes to call it. They chase the short dollar, which, I mean, hopefully that turns out to be true. Hopefully in a few years, you know, they will find themselves regretting it. They will look back and think, yeah, that was good for that year, but it really kind of screwed us, you know, going forward.
We actually, before we started TAC, one of the first things we did was look at the history of social movements in America to figure out what worked and what didn't. And we saw there was an overwhelming theme in every social movement that carried weight and that brought change. They were based on compassion, not hate. TAC will be based on compassion.
Because you have to have compassion and you have to have hope if you want to work toward making things better. And that's the whole point of any, at least of any social political movement that has any staying power. I mean, there are hate movements, but they usually flare up and burn out pretty quick. And they're looked back upon as atrocities, as terrible embarrassments, as these awful things. Whereas real political movements, social justice movements, like the civil rights movement or the feminism movement or the gay rights movement, that have really brought about real change and push things forward in a positive direction. Yeah, it's all about compassion, and it's all about empathy, and it's all about standing up for people who have been left, aside. And you can't just say, okay, now let's unite in how awful we think everything is, or let's unite in bullying people, or let's unite in holding these people down, or patting ourselves on the back for how smart we are. Like that gets toxic really fast. You can't build a movement just on how much smarter you are than other people. You have to build a movement on, okay, where are the deficiencies? What can we do to make things better? Who can we help? How can we help them? Who can we pull up?
It's being smart, not being compassionate.
That's another thing. Yeah, if you're smart, you will be compassionate, because that's how you build a better society for everybody. How smart is it to just be a fucking know-it-all who doesn't give a shit about anybody else? Absolutely.
As my girlfriend likes to constantly remind me, I don't know shit, so I'm going to keep doing this and keep trying to figure out maybe a little bit more than less than shit. So
yeah, it's
kind of the thing we should be going for.
It's a process. You're a work in progress. We're all works in progress. We
got a very important and very difficult question right. There's no reason to believe in any kind of higher power because there's no evidence to support it. I know some folks have said it's the easiest question ever. No, it's not. It's not an easy question. If it was an easy question, everybody would have gotten to it. 2 + 2 is 4 is an easy question.
Right.
Is there a God? Is not. Because look at our cultures, look at our societies, look at our history. It's not easy with those influences on you. Those influences showing you how to not think.
Yeah.
But once you have overcome that, yeah, you gained a level. Let's gain another level. That's all I'm saying. We got this thing right. What else can we get right?
Absolutely. And there's so many things we still have to get right.
Honestly, my conversations with you have helped me personally get a few more things right. So I do thank you for that.
Well, yeah, I know, but I know you have other people around you as well who are wonderful resources.
They are. Some of them.
Yeah, some of them.
Some are terrible. I wish I could fire them. No, I'm kidding.
We won't name names.
Shout outs to the TAC team: Andrew Dennis, John Curbo, Michael John, Mitch Joseph. Without you guys doing the heavy lifting and propping me up and making me look way smarter than I am, we would not be here. So.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear. Yeah, so we're coming to the end of the hour. I just want to, we'll remind people once again, TAC is the Atheist Conference. It will take place next year in New York City, July 6, 7, and 8, at the Roosevelt Hotel. If you want to join us, and we dearly, dearly wish that you would, you can go to theatheistconference.com to buy your tickets and get your hotel reservations. And it's just going to be an awesome weekend in New York City with a bunch of really cool atheists and secular people, and who knows who else, right?
Well, Steve's going to be there. So
I'm going to be there.
You get to meet Steve in person for the first time, and he's a lot of fun, I got to say.
You'll be able to see how underwhelming I am in person. No, it's, yeah.
We've wear that hat too.
Oh, what was weird is when I met people at the Reason rally, more than one person said, "Oh, wow, you're wearing the hat." And I thought, like, yeah, why would I pretend to dress this way? Like, this is the way I dress. Why would I make this up?
I mean, I love the pin on the neck and the hat. Like, that's a costume.
That's the pen is kind of just horseshit at this point. The pen serves no purpose. It's just there because it's there. But
well, it's tradition.
But yeah,
why not?
Yeah, people. How else are people going to recognize me? They would see, if they just saw this, they couldn't be sure. They'd be like, I don't know, it looks like him, but.
Well, Steve,
yeah, but yeah, I'm
a public figure. I do not, so I kind of pity you for that one. You always have to have the pin. You have to wear the hat. I can wear a tutu and paint my face every color on earth and no one cares, but you have to stay the same.
Yeah, it's a curse. It's, you know, Rodney Dangerfield always had to wear the rumpled suit and the red tie. It's like he couldn't go anywhere. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I'll be there. A lot of other awesome people will be there. There's a list of the speakers that have been confirmed so far on the website.
Quick shout out to Dr. Christy Winters. We cannot wait to meet you and host you. So many good people, actually. Steve, you brought on so many good people, so I'm so excited about this.
Yeah, one of our
New York as it is Steve's for what he's trying to promote. So
hopefully one of the highlights of the event will be the YouTube panel that I'll be a part of, and Christy will be a part of, and Foxy Jezebel and the One Janitor and ContraPoints. It's going to be a really cool event. Yeah, I've had the opportunity to hang out with Christy in person a couple of times now, and she is amazing and a wonderful, just blindingly intelligent, charming person, and she will be a fantastic addition to this conference. I'm looking forward to seeing her as well. So yeah,
it's gonna be something new. It's gonna be something unique, and it's gonna be something we repeat. So yes, support it, be a part of it, join us, join the conversation. The biggest thing we have to offer is all of you meeting each other.
Absolutely. Wouldn't that be great if this was an event where not only it was a good show and we put on some good talks and some useful workshops, but a bunch of people who maybe haven't been to an atheist conference before or haven't been to one for a long time get to show up and meet each other and meet some of the veterans and meet some of the folks who are new, and we have just a brand new seed of energized, awesome, motivated atheists to go out and you know, kick off a new atheist movement that will hopefully be an improvement on what has come before, and will set up something even better for the future. That would be fantastic. So yeah, so there you go. theatheistconference.com. That's where you go to buy your tickets, to get your hotel reservations, to learn about the event. If what Lee and I have told you over the last hour hasn't quite crystallized, you're still not exactly sure what we're talking about, you can go to the website and check it out. And we really hope that you can join us. And obviously this is not the last time you're going to hear me talk about it. You're going to be sick of me talking about it by the time July rolls around. I'm going to be pushing it relentlessly. So will a lot of other folks who are involved in it. And Lee, I'm sure you'll be back here talking about it with me a few more times before we get there. But
oh hell, even if we're not talking about tech, Steve, I love coming on.
We'll just come on and talk about it. We'll find something that we both violently disagree on.
You know, Steve, I don't like your hat, so fuck you.
Actually, no, I have the perfect one.
I love your hat. I'm sorry.
He can't stay mad at me. No, I have a great one, and I'm just gonna mention it, and then we have to stop the show because we'll talk about this for 3 hours, I'm sure. But if you ever wanted to come on and argue about Star Trek Discovery, because I know you don't like it, and I think it's pretty good.
I want to like it, Steve. I want to. It's just not Star Trek.
That would be a good show. That would be a good show.
I actually stopped arguing against it because all the crazy Republican conservative people started railing against it. It was like, oh shit, I don't want to be with one of them.
I'm just gonna back away.
But not for your reasons, because you guys are idiots.
Right.
So,
right. It's like, no, I have other problems with it. I don't. What you guys are saying, yeah.
What you guys are saying is like why it's actually good. So
don't you love that? Like, actually, I those are things I like about it. What the hell is wrong with you people? Oh yeah, well we should do that. So anyway, that's it. Thank you, Lee, once again for joining me, and we'll do this again at some point in the future, whether we're talking about TAC related stuff or something else entirely. It's always a pleasure to have you on the channel, my friend.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Steve.
And thanks to everybody for watching. And again, I will not shut up about TAC until it's over. So I hope you get used to hearing me mention it fairly regularly between now and July.
Never going to be over. We're going to keep doing it.
I'm never going to shut up about it.
That's what I want to hear.
All right. Thanks for watching, everybody.